In partnership with cleveland.com, this is Capital Letter. Testing for the coronavirus is considered crucial to mitigating the virus and ultimately reopening the state's economy. President Trump says state governors have what they need to expand testing, but if they don't, federal resources are available. Yet more and more governors are finding it necessary to go it alone to improve their state's testing capacity. Cleveland.com reporter Andrew Tobias joins us now to talk more about why all testing, like politics, is proving to be local. Andrew, good to see you.
It's good to see you. Thanks.
Andrew, the president says states have what they need to expand testing, and if they don't, they have federal resources there to help. On Monday, he held up a big binder full of federal locations that states can go to for help if they need it. So why is there this disconnect between what the president is saying and what governors like Mike DeWine are experiencing?
So I'm not exactly sure what was in that binder, but I think that the problem isn't that there aren't labs or facilities available to perform these tests. It's that there's a lack of supplies that they actually need to perform the tests. And so what you hear from governors is that the lack of this testing makes it harder for them to prepare to reopen their states because they can't tell if the problem is getting better or worse. When they eventually do reopen, testing is important to allow people to quickly identify those who are sick and isolate them as opposed to having to keep everybody isolated. So it's just something that you hear. Governor Mike DeWine's been talking about this a lot this week, that there's just a lack of testing supplies that they need and they can't make the most of what they have.
So there is this question of supply and demand when it comes to materials like chemical reagents and equipment that the states need, not so much the tests. But can states like Ohio access these needed supplies without more intervention from the federal government?
So I guess that remains to be seen, but obviously the federal government has a role that it can play. It could negotiate better prices by making bulk purchases of these supplies and then allocating them. They could provide additional funding to the states so that they can buy them on their own. They could provide criteria that the states could follow, that they wouldn't be stepping on each other's toes. So there is a role the federal government can play. Obviously, our government is set up so that the states are autonomous to a certain degree. But, so as far as answering your question directly, I guess states are working on it. You see instances where governors are making do with what they have. And I guess it remains to be seen how successful they're at doing this without, I guess, the federal government playing a larger direct role.
This whole argument over testing capacity has put the president at odds with Democratic governors in particular. But Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, a Republican, just bought 500,000 testing kits from South Korea. And Governor DeWine, also, of course, a Republican, announced a bipartisan strike force that's going to look at ways to expand testing. What do these moves say about the reality that governors are facing on the ground?
Yeah, so like I said, if the states are kind of left to figure this out on their own, I think they're trying to just figure it out and work with what they have. Obviously, these two Republican governors aren't excited to pick a fight with the White House. It's not really politically doesn't play that well for them. And even practically, maybe they would rather have a smooth relationship and not make things more complicated than they have to be. But they're still taking efforts to do what they can. Today, Governor DeWine announced this strike force. It's going to be led by two former governors. One's a Democrat and one's a Republican. We don't know a lot about what they're going to be doing, but their main goal is going to be to try to identify testing supplies. And that's that's some firepower to deal with a very unglamorous and specific problem. And it goes to show you how much, a priority it is right now.
Also poignant that the governor has taken a bipartisan approach to directing those two former governors. Andrew, thank you.
Thank you.
Be the first to read tomorrow's headlines today. Subscribe to Capital Letter by going to cleveland.com/Capital Letter.